build voice AI, from where I've personally tried out voice AI, building voice AI agents, and the kind of thrill you get, and the kind of perspective that all of these companies that are built on open source platform and come to a halt, or they get stuck when it comes to scaling. Because I've seen in many of the pricing, you have one thing called concurrent calls, that is about, let's say, 15 to 20 to 25. And if you want more concurrent calls, you need to go to their enterprise plan or something. You need to reach out to them, right? So growth of these voice AI companies, and I've heard it all across this ecosystem, that thing is happening, right? So from
Yeah. In the case of LiveKit, that 15 to 20, or even for that matter, sometimes 25 is something which you can handle per server on a LiveKit agent.
okay,
That's what multiple builders were building on top of LiveKit.
okay,
So and it mainly boils down to the WebRTC. From the LiveKit server to the LiveKit agent, the audio is flowing over WebRTC and it's using a Opus codec. So it's doing transcoding at the LiveKit agent layer, where it is converting that, basically decoding the Opus and downsampling from 48 kilohertz to 16 kilohertz, and it's doing all of that. And also the WAD happens on the LiveKit agent. So,
okay,
and all these operations are expensive and adds up. So it will limit the number of calls you can handle on a given instance of LiveKit agent.
okay,
So that's where the cost adds up. It's very good for demos. You can get things up and running very fast,
got
but you'll soon realize that, okay, if you want to scale to multiple hundreds of calls, the just the requiring significant amount of hardware.
okay,
Because whereas it's not really doing any of the heavy lifting here, because I mean, like most people, the way most of the startups are using right now, so STT is a cloud STT, the LLM is a cloud LLM, and the TTS is a cloud TTS. So if you're just orchestrating, it should not really take that much of CPU.
So you are telling me if all of this happens, then Chetan would get more customers, than he'd have more folks coming to cloud, right? But I just wanted to understand a couple of terms that you use. Break it down to us in a very simple way. What is WebRTC? What is Opus? And why do Opus need encoding and decoding? And
Anyways, I send the
sorry, Kirtana, were you saying something? Yes, Nitish, I have to answer my questions here. So they just help me create a picture in which I can put all of these terms together and make some sense out of this.
See, I mean, when we're doing calls over the browser and basically app, I think that's where even the ChatGPT app talk to a ChatGPT agent. So that's where WebRTC made perfect sense, because you're talking to someone over the internet, where you need a jitter buffer and adjust for variable bandwidth and all that, where WebRTC does all of that. So makes perfect sense. But if you are in a controlled and the streaming from the telephony system, and basically like in the case of LiveKit, the telephony was added later, much later, which was added to LiveKit SIP, through which you can actually connect a SIP trunk, and that's how you connect to the telephony. So while in the SIP trunk, I mean, any of the SIP trunks, they don't, in the SIP trunk world, in the PSTN world, there is no Opus. I mean, in India, it's usually like 8 kilohertz. And right now we do have 16 kilohertz being offered by some of the carriers. In your phones, when you do a HD call on 4G or 5G. So voice over LTE or voice over NR, the HD calls are using 16 kilohertz, but again, it's not Opus. So whereas WebRTC, the most popular codec being used is Opus, so which will basically like encode and decode the audio. So LiveKit, for the WebRTC part, it's using Opus, where they're giving the audio to the STT. So that basically takes linear PCM. So just plain decoded linear PCM audio. So Opus, and then give the audio frames to the STT, and TTS will again be linear PCM, and you take that and give it back to. So essentially there is that whole conversion happening. And in addition to that, LiveKit is also doing one more, which is basically doing a base64 encoding of audio frame, converting it into a JSON and all that. So
That sounds so complicated to me. So I'm sure there's a lot of decoding, encoding, and a lot of conversion here. So tell me from a layman.
and in the resampling is one more thing. So in every 20 millisecond, there'll be an audio frame. That's the default streaming rate. So every 20 milliseconds, you'll get audio frame, and it has to keep doing this entire operation every 20 milliseconds.
Okay.
So, and that adds up when you're handling multiple calls.
So that adds up when you're handling, let's say, 2 lakh calls every day, and let's say 30,000
This
calls.
mainly boils down to concurrency. How many concurrent such calls you're doing? So basically, like they'll start adding up to your CPU load.
Got it.
And consumption of CPU happens with most people who LiveKit use Celero WAD. Basically, you're running a model, a very small model, albeit,
Mm-hmm.
on the LiveKit agent, which again takes up significant CPU,
Yeah.
and that creates a bottleneck to how many calls you can handle on a
Right.
given. And most people do it. The main reason for the low concurrency on a given instance will typically boil down to the, again, even the language which is being used, either Node.js or Python,
Correct.
which has its own limitations.
I'm one of them, though. Yes. Absolutely. So we have a lot of complications here. We have a lot of, matter turning into different matter, and then it's getting back to the, same matter. So a lot of
Mhm.
decoding, encoding, and things that are being repeated. So can the same thing be simplified? And if it can be, then how? Or do you know, is Epicode or any other company is trying to process that is happening?
Yeah, so we are attempting to simplify it. So our thought process is that the orchestration should not deal with DSP. So ideally, it should not deal with codec transcoding. It should not deal with resampling,
Mhm.
and it should not deal with even the VAT for that matter.
Mhm.
So what we have done in our IRA voice is essentially we are doing all of this in the telephony layer, and we are doing that in C++
Mhm.
with the efficient threading models. So we can handle a lot more concurrency, even though if we use the same model, Celery WAD, since
Mhm.
we are doing it, we can handle a lot more concurrency on the same hardware.
Okay.
So essentially, what we are doing is, okay, not only handling telephony, we are also uh, basically, okay, so different some STD providers will require 16 kilohertz,
Mm.
and some TTS providers, like, will only support 24 kilohertz, will only support 48 kilohertz. So when we stream the audio, we allow for variable codec rates. Both on the stream we give you can be 16 kilohertz, and the stream we get back from you can be 24 or 48. Basically, as long as you specify it upfront that, okay, this is what we are going to send,
Right.
the system will adapt and do the resampling. And we use WebSocket instead of WebRTC.
Okay.
The telephony layer is already doing all the things which WebRTC does. It already has a jitter buffer. It already handles the
Mhm.
codec negotiation and all that. So, and we are already doing all of that in C++. So, and we typically stream to a controlled environment.
Mhm.
Typically, the bot orchestration can either be deployed in the same data center as where the telephony is, especially in India, where the telephony, most enterprise deployments will have to be terminated on the enterprise data center or whatever data center, and in the same data center as where the
Right.
telephony is terminated. So it'll be like a LAN where you don't need to replicate the process of jitter buffer and everything with WebRTC. You can just directly stream it over WebSocket,
Okay.
so
I
which
have
will be a lot lighter.
Nitish. So having
Mhm.
the same DC helps you in reducing cost or latency or both?
It will help you reduce both.
Both.
So it'll reduce the compute, it'll also reduce the latency.
Okay. And
And we are doing all this resampling on the our iRAVOS side. We are doing, basically, you don't have to deal with transcoding. You don't have to deal with the base 64 encode decode either, because WebSocket already supports both text data as well as binary data. So what we do is we send on the same WebSocket, you will get text data, which is all the events, including the WAD events, our server side, and we can just give you the WAD event saying, okay, speech started, speech stopped, and also you'll get the continuous stream of audio chunks
got
in the
it.
binary format, which is linear PCM binary. You just take it and give it to the STT. Happens for CTS, you just give us back the linear PCM, and that goes to the telephony.
Got it. One question, Nitish. So orchestration layer these days, all of the major players that are out there, they are
Mhm.
doing things that could be done by telephony and concurrent calls or the server costs of all of these companies who are built on top of them is getting way higher than it should
Mhm.
be. Right.
Yes.
So, like, I don't know if you can name companies or not. Do you personally know any of these companies who are kind of big players or they have good customers are built on top of these open source platform and having the same issues that we just spoke about right now? And did you help them out or something like that? Like, if you have any examples like that, would be great. You don't need to mention the company name, but you can just let me know, like, if that is the case.
Well, I mean, okay, we know people who are using LiveKit, and we know what is the kind of hard number of servers they need. I'd
Okay.
not like to name any companies, but more on to our stack and what is the kind of server they need. So
Okay.
essentially, your orchestration server cost, basically, when you scale, is what you typically use in the case of LiveKit or PipeCat.
Just give me a number here. Now, let's say if I'm using, let's say, LiveKit and I'm what would be the, let's say on if I'm triggering let's say 5,000 calls, concurrent calls, what could be my cost?
Okay, let's keep it. I mean, okay, let's keep it at a lower number
Okay.
just for the sake of simplicity.
Okay.
So, okay, let's say if you just want to do 100 concurrent calls.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in the case of typically, I think I'm sure there are players here who have already tried LiveKit. They might have even gone live, so they can confirm numbers. So, typically, on a given 4-core instance, I mean, if you take a system with a 4-core and let's say a 4 GB or 8 GB of RAM,
Correct.
on a LiveKit, if you run LiveKit agent, I'm not talking about the LiveKit server. I mean, you can use the cloud LiveKit server or the self-hosted LiveKit server. The LiveKit server is efficient. It can handle like multiple 500 calls on a 8-core server or probably even more. But LiveKit agent is where most of the heavy lifting is happening and it takes a lot of compute. So on a typical 4-core, 8 GB RAM server, you can only handle like at the max 25 calls, accounting for all of things. So basically like STT, I mean, essentially, it's only orchestrating STTL and MTTS, but it's also doing all this WebRTC handling, and it's also doing WAD with the typically with Celera WAD. So now that's the best case scenario. Typically, it's even 20 in some cases, even 15 in some cases, but let's just take the best case scenario of 25.
Okay.
So now, if you want to handle 100, you need 4 such servers.
Correct. Absolutely.
So now, if you go to 1,000, you need 40 such servers. So essentially, like you will auto scaling cluster of so many instances, and you have to load balance the traffic across all of them, and the costs will spike like crazy.
Okay, just give me an idea of what would the cost be to have 46 server for, let's say, 500 concurrent calls.
Chetan will be the best person to answer that.
Yeah, so that will be very heavy cost. Yeah, Chetan, were you saying something?
Oh, please go ahead. I was trying to say, yeah, Nitish is right. But
Got it.
Vishnu, typically, it's an echo from my side.
We can just check in AWS EC2 pricing. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to go to the pricing aspect of it, but if you just get the factor of reduction, that itself will convey the message. So if you do the same orchestration, the way I was telling, basically, where you don't deal with basically you replace WebRTC with WebSocket, and you don't have to deal with resampling or even for that matter WAD. You get all of those as events over the WebSocket. So now the orchestration becomes extremely lightweight, and you can even handle 500 calls on the same 4-core. In fact, I mean, we have benchmarked it to even handle 1,000 at what mode you are handling. But 2 modes of streaming. So one is depending on which kind of STT you're using. So if you're using a streaming STT, you will obviously need a stream, but some people do because latency will be extremely low. So we have people who are using non-streaming STT as well and just giving the audio to the local STT and getting the transcript. So in that case, we can even buffer the audio on the telephony server and send it as soon as the WAD detects that the user stopped speaking.
Okay.
So you will already get the buffered entire chunk of audio, which you can immediately give it to the STT instead of the orchestration layer having to buffer the packets. But now that reduces the network IO, the messages you are dealing with. So that also drastically reduces the compute. So in that case, you can even go to 1,000 or even more. But even with streaming, you can handle 500 on the same 4-core 8 GB. So now dealing with 1,000, you're just dealing with two instances instead of dealing with 40 instances.
So you're saying instead of 40 instances that I'll be paying for, I can just have 2 instances, right?
Yeah.
And that is like a fraction, less than a fraction of a cost.
Yes.
Anybody would know that.
Yeah.
So put up some numbers here on the chat. And if any of the folks have any questions or anything that you want to convey, please, you can put it on the chat and we'll read that out for you. So he has told about 40 VMs may cost about 4 lakhs per month. So now that's a lot of cost, right? There's a lot of difference voice AI companies could save if they understand like the engineering, or if they are being smart enough to let the orchestration layer do its job, and you have the telephony which can do its job, right? So if were you saying something?
Yeah, and one more platform. There is also Dogra, which is open source.
Correct.
So I recently saw their post with the TTS caching.
Okay.
Yeah, we 6 to 8 months now. I don't know whether anyone from Winfer has joined. They are our customers, so they have already reported that there's a huge cost saving they are seeing with respect to TTS because of the caching. So where we have like something called as a CDB, which is a distributed cache. So our telephony will be deployed in two places, so two geographies. So now what we do is this cache will also be deployed in both the geographies. I mean, the orchestration will also happen in both the geographies. And anything which will be cached in one place will also be replicated to the other place. And this is an in-memory cache. It will basically also have persistence. So it'll also put it to the disk, but it'll also be in the memory. And the lookup will be in the same DC. So you get the entire sentence. Basically, we buffer the thing and you check the sentence. If it is there in the cache, you get the audio in 1 millisecond. So
That is just
so one thing is it's saving cost because you're not regenerating, because most voice AI calls catering to a particular use case. So there will be a lot of repetitions.
correct.
I mean, instead of just generating variations of the same sentence, you can instruct the LLM to give it like 2-3 variations of the sentences and stick to that. And you can always combine multiple sentences. But you can give some examples and you can, wherever possible, you can stick to those examples. And if those examples are cached, you can cut down your TTS cost by 80%. And which is whatever we are achieving with the CDP, and it also gets synced. So even if it is running in a HA multiple geographies, the audio cached in one will also sync to the other. So even there, it will not end up using TTS.
Got it.
And so it's not only cutting cost, it's also cutting because anything from the cache is extremely fast lookup. So it's also cutting down your time to end-to-end latency.
Absolutely. Interesting that I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad it came up right now. So there's one more thing here that I wanted to highlight. When you have a lot of, like, now let's say if we have our three friends, Nithish, Vishnu, and let's say Sendil, we three are best friends, right? Now, what we are doing in the current scenario is, Nithish take 80% of the workload, and let's say Vishnu will take 10 and Sendil will take 10% of the workload. So this is just a, layman example that I was able to come out of this conversation. So the same thing is happening with all the open source, orchestration layer that are there right now. They are doing 80% of the work that they don't need to actually, right? You can scatter your resources, you can engineer things in an efficient way that the resource utilization is equally moving partners that you have. Moving parts that you have. And I think that is something that you have done, right? Because many of the folks here, I believe they are also from a non-tech background. They won't be able to understand all the terminologies that we are speaking about. So I was able to gather this example for them, right? So absolutely. So I think we have spoken about LiveKit, and the next thing that I want to speak about, Nitish, is retail. I've used that platform and I have seen this on LiveKit website that retail is their customer, right? So what's exactly happening here? Are they like built on LiveKit, and what is the advantage if I'm going to retail and creating an agent? Why can't I do the same on LiveKit, right? If it's a version of LiveKit, why is that?
To be frank, I'm not really very familiar with retail.
Okay. So I was kind of curious about this because I was building an agent on retail, I think last week, and I saw on LiveKits, this customer list that retail is there. I'm like, okay, so if they're a customer, something might be happening there. But yeah, I might go and read the documentation and figure something out. Great.
So what is the pricing like in the case of retail?
Oh my God. Like it is about like on a good scale, it'll charge me about 15 to 18 rupees per minute.
Okay.
So this is more than LiveKit, right? Yeah, correct. So that's why I got curious.
Will that even work out in India?
That will never, it's not going to work out. So I was also speaking to one of the person who is working in speech to speech. I was speaking to him today afternoon, and he told me that many of the Indian markets are only ready to pay about 3 rupees to 4 rupees per minute. They are not ready to pay more than 4 rupees per minute. So I don't know how folks are building this, and either they are burning their own money and like subsidizing the 50% of it and taking, let's say, 4 rupees from a customer, but that won't work when you want
long term. Yeah, it will not work long term.
Yeah, it won't exactly work for long term. So talking about the demo like part again, right? So if I'm going to a voice AI company and if I want to see a demo, I can see the demo is flawless. And there are so many things that I cannot see in a demo. DTMF pass through, carrier, BID pooling for outbound campaigns, silence detection tune for indic, pause patterns. So these are the things that I'm not able to see in any of the voice AI demos, all of the players that are out there. And these are a couple of things that matters when you are at broad scale. Right? So why either folks are not aware that they need to look at these things and eval these things, or is the voice company not making them, more aware of this? Like what trend or what is the thing that is happening right now according to your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I have worked on DTMF-based IVRs in the beginning of my career,
Okay.
and I'm seeing that, I mean, even right now, there are enterprises who are IVRs because if it gets a job done, I mean, company doesn't want to pay more.
Absolutely.
So, and we have requirements where people ask for voice bots where certain parts of the input are still have to be taken via DTMF instead of the person may not want to like speak that out. So you might want to collect it as DTMF. So yeah, I mean, in our stack, we do support it. I mean, I believe even LiveKit supports the same. But I've seen that implement that flow in the case of LiveKit. But yeah, in our case, what will happen is, like I was telling earlier, you get a WebSocket connection on which you will get the events as well as the audio chunks. And even DTMF will essentially be events. So every single digit pressed, you will get it as individual events of, okay, this is pressed and so on. So you're just going to get a JSON payload telling, okay, what is pressed. And you can do whatever you want with that. So, and yeah, I mean, like I was telling, we are still, even to date, we are getting requirements of DTMF-based IVRs.
Okay, that's interesting. Can I know from which industry are, getting most of the interest right now?
Insurance and even
So, yeah, I guessed. I assumed that would be the case. Got it. Awesome.
so, and one more thing, I think we usually the transfers, so voice AI. So they would need the ability to transfer to a human. So the newer platforms, so essentially the voice AI orchestration. So someone is providing the telephony, someone is providing the orchestration, and someone is like gluing all the things together. So now if they want to do a transfer, it has to essentially to be a contact center. So essentially you transfer to a queue where one of the agents will pick up the call.
Right.
So
Human agents will pick up the call, right?
human agents will pick up the call. Yes. And this is where, like, unless the company existing, I mean, whoever is asking for human transfer, the contact center provider, like most companies will not be able to offer it. With any of these voice AI players, they will typically not have the backend required to also support human agents.
Okay. So
that is where we can help them. So what we can do is, I mean, when we are giving the telephony stack, it's not only catering to the voice agents, but stuff required for the human agents. So if you want to do if the voice AI bot transfer to a human agent, the stack will support even that. So since our predominant experience has been with telephony, we can even transfer it to agents on other, I mean, if the contact center is already having Avaya, Genesis, Cisco, etc. So then they can transfer it to that. But on the other hand, if they don't have it, and there are companies right now who are getting the majority of the job done by the voice agents. So they will have very few human requirements. So they may have some staff who are basically just occasional calls, the people who are doing other tasks take up the call. So in such cases, we can provide a telephony system where, okay, they can just register and be available. So if the agent wants to transfer, it can transfer.
Got it. So if I'm a very young voice AI company, I'm in the market for let's say about 1 year or even like 4 to 5 months, I can come to Epicode, and if I get a BPO or a call center kind of client, I can help me establish the whole flow, right? I just need to have identity layer, and the telephony part, the routing part would be taken care by Epicode itself, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And recording. So in our case, like all the 100% of the calls get recorded by default, and we don't store any of the recordings. What we do is, like, whoever is taking our services, we ask them to, I mean, we have ready connectors for all the cloud players. I mean, whether it's AWS or Azure or Google, or we can even take a FTP and push the file there. So essentially what we do is, as soon as the call is done, the recording will be pushed to their storage. So they take care of the retention.
Okay, got it. So as a voice AI company also, I don't have to worry about my customers' data being elsewhere.
Correct.
push to me, and I can give them the clarity. Hey, it's on my server, and I can delete it. I can do whatever the customer
Correct.
wants me to do with that
Yeah,
data.
and like many of the banks and like set up this entire thing in a private cloud. So where, I mean, in our case, like we just deploy it in their private cloud and the recording happens there, stays there.
Okay.
It will not even go out.
Got it. Yeah. Because all the details that are there in the call are very private. The
Yeah.
financial details of the customer. So
Mhm.
reason probably. Okay. Awesome. So I think we have covered a lot of things here, from building up, let's say, talking about open source platform, talking about what are the backlogs, or what are the reason why these open source platforms are kind of lacking, and what are the issues that companies that build their voice AI platform on this open source platform, right? So
Mhm.
I do want to talk about right now, after we have covered almost everything, I do want to talk about at the end of the day, right? Now, let's say I'm a voice AI company, code, and you folks are helping me with telephony, and I'm able to do a lot of things right now. So for me to win, if there was no Epicode, right? Now let's say I don't know what Epicode. For me to win, what would be the requirement? Like, how would Indian enterprises would know about me, and actually who wins in the race that is happening right now? In terms of voice AI company, I'm seeing a lot of numbers. Like every month you have three new voice AI companies, right? But I don't think so that is the same with telephony companies, and I don't think so that is the same with these open source orchestration layer companies, right?
Mhm.
So who actually wins this? Like, because as someone who wants to be a founder, or someone who wants to do something, I might see, like, let's say you might see an open source platform, and I might try to build on top of that. But there
Mhm.
are a lot of things that I'll be facing, and maybe that would cause me to stop the plan and try something else. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, who wins this race, basically?
Okay, I think there will be like two winners here. So one is basically like the AI models, like you said, are being commoditized. So because there are like so many HTTP providers, so many TTS providers, and so on. So uh, and even LLM, the cost is going down and everything, and even the open source orchestration is commoditizing even that part.
Mhm.
So a lot of those things are easy. So the voice AI companies, they will have to basically create a niche of their own,
Okay.
wherein they basically focus on one particular domain and get
Mhm.
really good at that and stand out. And that's where I think uh, they can win there. And telephony and the middleware, basically like whoever is giving the telephony middleware and this orchestration. So
Mhm.
all the cost efficiencies, all the examples we gave earlier. So
Mhm.
there is a big potential market out there for such players who can bring value to multiple voice AI companies by providing the middleware layer, which is going to make things easy for them and bring down their costs. I think there is potential.
Got it. Awesome. You are building the shovel, and folks are coming, and they are, using strength to
Mhm.
get the job done, right? So it's
Mhm.
always better to build something that other folks could use to build something else, which could be an
Mhm.
end, right? Awesome.
Hey, by the way, we are building. Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, folks, we wanted to speak about, would love to take any questions from anybody. If you are not from the tech background, or if you're not in this industry, that is also fine. You must be working at an NGO who is, let's say, helping a lot of folks, and this tech could be influential there. So please feel free to shoot any kind of questions that you have. Thank you. Or you can just ping it on the chat.
Sandil, maybe you can put whatever you wanted to say in the chat as well, I think.
Just give me 2 minutes. Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi, Sanjay. Yeah, there is no echo now.
Okay, there is no echoes. Okay. Bot Compose and Ira voice,
Mhm.
which will address some of the issues that is being faced by the LiveKit users, reducing the CPU usage and thereby the cost, right? So the way to do it is it should be open to new ideas.
Mhm.
Just because it's a well-known brand or it is being used widely doesn't mean that it is a best fit,
Yeah.
right? If you see a problem, you need to address it, and it is better to address it using a good architecture, not by throwing money at it, right? So what the developers are doing is they are not solving the problems
Mhm.
where they have no idea how to solve. So there they're just spending money,
Correct.
right? By not trying to look at alternate options.
Yeah.
But when it comes to telephony, they are trying to negotiate forever.
Okay.
Like a telephony guy says 50 paisa per minute, they say I will give you 40. You would say 40, it goes to 30, and finally it goes to free. But ask how many of them have called up LiveKit and said why your four-core server, I mean, why your four-core server is not able to handle more than 20 calls. So it's open challenge to all the developers in India. Why is that they don't ask questions to our international brand?
Yeah.
Because that platform is perfect. So the problem here, it's you have to look at it at what are the decisions you're making, whether you're making it based on the popularity of a platform,
Right.
or whether you're making it based on whether it solves the business problem.
Right.
So you can't be in love with a particular platform which cannot solve your actual problems. So
Yeah.
I'm not against LiveKit, but you need to find ways to make the platform more cost competitive instead of just squeezing the other vendors
Yeah.
who are part of the stack.
Good.
Right? That's my take. But which
Yeah, I
can
think just
be
to add to that, yeah, I can just
the best of
elaborate
both
on that.
worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, I mean, LiveKit has a lot of pros. I mean, you have a big collection of plugins where you can try out any STT, LLM, TTS vendor out there, and ideas where you can actually try, I mean, basically generation or how do you want to do the end of utterance and so on. So, like, it has a lot of ideas which are tested and proven, but there is the engineering decisions which were taken during the initial time is just holding on to it. And thing which we're trying to address by basically like should essentially make the LiveKit agent work. Instead of talking to a LiveKit server, it can essentially talk to IRA voice, and essentially like it'll be over a WebSocket connection. You will still get to use the plugin framework of LiveKit. You can still use whatever other than the WebRTC part of, as basically the RTC part of LiveKit, we are going to replace it with the WebSocket layer, and it'll also offload the requirement of Celery WAD. It'll basically like have a remote WAD plugin with WAD events from the remote side. So, and this should drastically reduce the compute requirement of LiveKit agent. So we are in the process of creating this and release that so that it can help out customers of folks who are using LiveKit out there.
Absolutely, because anybody who's using LiveKit, why wouldn't they want their prices to go down? So it is put forth in front of that LiveKit community or developers or folks who have built on LiveKit, they would definitely go and try this out.
Yeah.
So is it out yet, or is it on like next week? Do we have a timeline for that?
It's planned for
Next month. Okay.
So yeah, you can notify once it is out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So thank you, Sandil, for that question and your perspective. I saw a lot of heart in it. So yeah. Anybody else from the audience pool has a question? It could be something regarding voice AI. Like I'm getting a lot of agentic or robot calls, and it's very annoying. Like it could be anything. So please feel free to shoot any questions if any of you folks have. Okay. I think we are good.
Okay, I think there is a question from Dheeraj.
Okay.
Yeah, hi Dheeraj. So yeah, regarding that open source support, yeah, basically I think you're talking about self-hosted STT, LLM, and TTS. Yeah, I think we can release a version next week itself, but there is basically like we are working on two different versions right now. Like the bot compose, I think what you have tried as well is API driven. So essentially like bot compose is running somewhere and you essentially configure stuff using APIs, basically whether it's to add the bots and so on, and what should use and so on. Whereas, okay, in that what we're doing is essentially like we have a fixed framework for STT, basically like what is the message format the STT should give the transcript, and same goes for LLM is essentially OpenAI responses framework, and whatever you are using interface is following that. If you can write an adapter, then you can make it work. So give it to you next week itself. But we're also working on a SDK, which is very similar in essence to LiveKit SDK. In that took a whole bunch of plugins, basically like the different kinds of pipelines and the strategies there and so on. And that will be like people using LiveKit will feel at home using that SDK. So in that, it'll be very easy for you to use any STT-LLM test. Basically, if you don't have a plugin already, you can very easily plug in whatever you want to use uh, of your own. Reach out to you with respect to the current version, like whatever you have already used with STT-TTS or whatever you want to use. I think even Chetan reach out to you too.
Yeah.
So,
And it'll be the SDK, which will be the thing we want more people to use.
so Nitish, for that
Mhm.
Dheeraj's question, you can also inform him that hosting the open source ourselves. So we'll be releasing a AI module as well.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's one more thing, Dheeraj. We are okay as of now. We are only doing it with STT. Going to host like STT locally, so along with the orchestration. So that will totally reduce the latency with respect to the STT. So since it'll be like in the same LAN. So essentially, like as soon as the WAD detects that the user has gone silent, for that particular utterance, see how it works for you. So it's basically mainly targeting Indian languages as of now. See if it fits your needs.
So I have a question from Justin. He's asking now, let's say, in terms of the legal part of it, right? Now, let's say if you're talking about lakhs of, and some could be promotional, some could be, let's say, relevant, but there might be a lot which is not relevant, right? So, any try implications that these voice AI companies should be aware about, like that they are not doing right now? Are you personally seeing anything that is of high alert or something of very concerning when it comes to regulations and law?
Okay, Sendil, do you want to take this? I think you can mention about the 160 series, 140 series.
I think we should leave this question in this session. 160 can be used for transactional calls, and 140 series is for telemarketing. But I think we should not be going into that. We may have a separate session for
Mhm.
regulatory, because that's a vast topic in itself.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Sandil.
For anything which is telemarketing kind of thing. So basically, like the DND
Correct.
becomes again a challenge. So you need to make sure that you're calling people with consent.
Correct.
So if you're not calling from
Yeah. So I think the person who asked Justin, he's a lawyer, so he was intrigued from his, day to day what he's working on. Thank you.
yeah, this DID complaints where our voice AI partner will then have to provision the proof that okay, this is the consent given by the user, a CRM screenshot telling that okay, they have given the consent to call. For example, okay, just to give an example, I mean, like showed up interest in particular thing on the some web page,
Right.
and that's how like the bot will end up calling them, and then they'll say, okay, I'm in the DND list and raise a complaint. But then the CRM screenshot will show that okay, this at this time on this particular day or for this particular product, they showed the interest, and
Okay.
that's the reason for calling, and then the telco will uh, cancel the
Okay.
complaint.
Got it. Thank you, Nitish. Thank you, Justin. Any other questions? We are almost about 1 hour and more. So I'll take the last question. If anyone has any questions, you can post it on the.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, hi, Nikhil.
Hello, Nikhil this side. Thank you, Vishnu, for inviting me in this seminar. So, first of all, I want to introduce myself. I work on Sonexus. We help AI teams source, verify, and build realistic human data set for speech and voice AI systems, starting with how India actually speaks in real conversation. So, voice agents in India, where do you see the biggest production failure today? Speech recognition, turn taking, code switching, domain understanding, or lack of unrealistic evaluation data. Thank you.
So is that question to the audience or is that question to?
I think that is a question to
Uh,
you.
it's for you, like anyone deploying the voice agents in India, and you are the best, I think,
Okay,
to
so
answer this question.
Mhm. Okay, if take a go at it, I would let them because personally, like I'm more of the creator of this framework and not the one who is dealing with the day-to-day like deployment. But yeah, I think okay. Does anyone wants to? Nikhil, by the way, you said you're from Soniox, right? STT.
Not Sonio, I'm working on Sonexus. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, one based on my interactions, and this is what goes as input to your LLM, and which most people talk about is interruption handling. So wherein like when the bot has to handle that interruption cleanly. So again, like there could be even fake interruptions as well. So for example, a person coughs. If you go by purely by the VAT signal, the cough will be a VAT signal that okay, user is speaking. So it might trigger an interruption, whereas in reality, it's not really an interruption. So, or any such loud noises. So is something which I've seen multiple folks complaining in the voice AI domain.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And I have another question. How you guys handle the interruption then?
So there are two strategies. One is basically like based on the length of the interruption. Basically, like when we, even if the VAT detects that okay, it's a speech, so what we do is we'll pause the bot at a framework called bot compose. So the bot playback. So stop it as soon as the next current word, whatever it is uttering, as soon as that is done, it will just go silent. And then we wait. So like to see how long the interruption was. One is like waiting for the duration to see, okay, like how long the interruption is, and even transcribing and seeing, okay, like there in the interruption. So like the first one, you can actually ignore a single word or if there is no word kind of thing. But yeah, if you go by the transcription, then you actually know what they told and then decide whether to resume. So in the case of resume, it will basically like not discard that response from the previous from the bot. It will continue from wherever it left off from the same word. Because for example, if you just make a loud sound, it'll pause momentarily and then okay, like 1 second or 2 seconds later, it'll decide that okay, it's a fake false alarm, so it'll just continue from where it left off. The in the case of actual interruption, the new input will be taken and it'll give a new response. So orchestration platforms do the same.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Nitish, for the explanation and answering my questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's only coming to me.
I'm not able to see Dheeraj.
I think he's sending one-to-one. Okay. Yeah, Dheeraj, as this is regarding telephony, okay, I'll just read out Dheeraj's question. As this is regarding telephony, can we do worldwide calling, either outreach and inbound calls? So yeah, Dheeraj, like from a platform perspective, we don't have a limitation of where you're calling. So if you are buying the telephony trunk, basically we Tata and Geo and so on. So if you are getting a trunk for your use case, then inbound is anyways allowed by default. So inbound, even in our sandbox, the international inbound calls are always accepted, but the international outbound calls are not allowed in the sandbox environment, and it is only allowed in production environments because the international calls costs are pretty high.
Dheeraj, for this you need to talk to Tata. They provide the international call termination service. So this is very similar to call centers, how BPOs wherein human agents would be in India and they used to calls in the US, right? Customers from the US could talk to BPO agents. So Tata Communications or I think it is Tata Communications who provide this international VoIP services. So there are others also like Route Mobile and others. You select the country and ask them what are the rates and help you with that SIP, international VoIP SIPs trunking services.
Thank you, Sandil. Thank you, Dheeraj, for that question. Yeah, Dheeraj says yes, sure. Awesome. Whole session up because we have passed about 20 minutes more than what was decided. So thank you everyone for joining this. If you still have any questions or if you want to see how voice AI companies are doing or if you want to start a voice AI company, feel free to email Epicode. And if you are someone who is trying to build voice AI on LiveKit or any of the open source platform, do mail us. If not a partnership, we can certainly help you in setting up things more streamlined. So I'll just drop, Nitish, you can drop your mail ID here on the message.
Yeah.
Just one point, Vishnu, for LiveKit and PipeCat customers for the SIP trunking service. So, and plus along with the proxy, we provide a lot of events which can be used by the developers. And as Nitish module, make sure that you don't have to use the LiveKit agent and consumption of the sampling at our side, so that 100 calls or more on a single 4-core VM.
Got it. Fantastic, Sandil. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of folks.
Yeah, that way you don't have to subscribe to the LiveKit server, and that will also the subscription as well, and the latency also will improve.
So in the case of LiveKit SIP, so the way the thing works is you have your LiveKit SIP, basically the SIP is handled in one PBX, and then you have the LiveKit server, and then the communication goes from LiveKit server to the LiveKit agent. So essentially, like there is a hop. So from the SIP telephony server to LiveKit server, from LiveKit server to the LiveKit agent. So now essentially, like the one hop can be totally eliminated, where the telephony server can directly talk to the LiveKit agent.
So that's what our adapter will be doing. So we directly send the SIP traffic to the offloading a lot of additional work done by the agent as of today. So that way you can reduce the latency as well as drastically reduce the cost of servers, and even you don't even have to pay the hosted LiveKit server on your premise. We'll be playing the role of the server.
I don't think so. LiveKit would be happy after hearing this, but
No, but say open source. I don't think they bother. They're
yeah.
bothered.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nithish, especially. Thank you, Sendil, and thank you all of you who joined this information and a lot of things that we have learned about it today that we can go and, tell our friends, someone who is trying to build something in tech. And probably you can come back to Nithish or Sendil or me at any time. Even for small helps, we're not looking for something which is very transactional also. So even if you need any help, you can come to Epicode's team, and the team will be more than happy to help you out for any of the things that they have any knowledge about. So thank you. You folks have a very good night. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Vishnu.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Vishnu. Good night. Thanks, Nitish.
Bye.